our regular American outsiders, Benji Irby and Shemeka Michelle, on the show chatting about the Black Lives Matter rally they attended, only to find no black people. Well, the very talented Sarah Dudley, who designs the covers for The Spectator Australia, was so inspired by their video that she turned it into a cartoon cover for the magazine, illustrated by the excellent Ben Davis. First, they stole our freedom, then our music, and now they've stolen our outrage. It's a great gag because, like all great gags, it's anchored in the truth. The theft or appropriation of outrage. Outrage is the new currency that is fueling the most dangerous civil unrest across the West since the 1960s, and a cancel culture that has turned political correctness into a sick new version of Mao's Cultural Revolution, with individuals being publicly shamed. Next, they'll have signs round their heads, or even losing their jobs for simply speaking the truth. And the theft of outrage for political gain and individual enrichment has become endemic. Watch this video and look at how our beautiful young children are being destroyed by the grievance industry of the left, and tell me we don't have a major problem in our schools and universities.
I'm ashamed to be an American where not all folks are free. And I won't forget the enslaved who died and built this place for free. So I proudly lift up all the folks who are still oppressed today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt this ain't our land. Trump and the USA.
What a tragedy. People were and are rightly outraged about the death of the American George Floyd at the hands of the police. The individuals involved have been charged and will face the full force of the law, as they should. But the outrage has been exploited and franchised into every facet of life across the world. Indeed, several weeks ago, the hopelessly inept and compromised Dan Andrews government allowed a massive Black Lives Matter rally to take place in Melbourne despite the COVID restrictions. Thousands streamed into the streets, many totally ignoring any attempt at social distancing. And sure enough, the coronavirus has now ripped through Melbourne like wildfire, particularly through the ethnic and other communities. And let me repeat what I said at the time and was pilloried for by online ratbag activists for saying so. If this disease now enters our precious and vulnerable Indigenous communities, be it on the heads of those who organised those rallies and those who encouraged attendance in defiance of health warnings. The justification for the rally was black deaths in custody. This claim was repeated endlessly, not only at the marches, but of course on the ABC you pay for.
Black Lives Matter in this country has been a movement since colonisation. So we're not asking for the world, we're asking to live. And to be honest with you, Andrew, yeah, we can say there's good police, there's bad police, but quite frankly, if people in positions of authority can't not kill a vulnerable person who's locked up, then maybe we need to relook at these institutions.
These institutions are killing us, and it's just the continuation the whole time, since 1770. It's the same thing. That's what it is. I don't want to be an animal no more.
And on it went on the drum as well, much of the beating the same story. But is it true? Is racism systemic in our institutions? If so, then it's a national disgrace. But if not, then it is a tragic and a wicked lie. And I'll explain why in a sec. The Indigenous death rates in custody per 100 prisoners, and I'm quoting here directly from the official Australian Institute of Criminology's most recent report, the death rate of Indigenous prisoners was lower than the death rate of non-Indigenous prisoners. In 2017 to 2018, the death rate for Indigenous prisoners was 0.14 per 100, and the death rate for non-Indigenous prisoners was 0.18 per 100. And I quote again, the death rates of Indigenous prisoners have been consistently lower than the death rates of non-Indigenous prisoners since 2003-2004. Quote. Before that, yes, it was the other way round, disgracefully. And incarceration rates are still a huge, huge problem. But for nearly 2 decades, Indigenous Australians have been less likely, not more likely, than non-Indigenous Australians to die in custody per 100 prisoners. What the protesters are protesting about, and what the ABC are fanning the flames of, is, at this point in time, and has been for nearly 2 decades, a falsehood. It is a lie. Last week, following those Black Lives Matter protests, the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Law Enforcement, chaired by the outstanding Liberal backbench MP and member for Hughes and Sydney South, Craig Kelly, held a public hearing into the Australian Institute of Criminology's annual reports about deaths in custody. One of the key findings of that committee was that the majority of deaths in custody are actually from natural causes, from illness and disease. So let's stop all the hysterical language about murder and killings, please. But there's another sad point. Every death is a tragedy, black, white, or any other colour, and every life matters. But Craig Kelly asked a critical question. What is the death rate by age group of Indigenous Australians in custody compared to the death rate of those same Indigenous age groups outside of custody? I imagine you could have heard a pin drop as the bureaucrats shuffled in their seats looking for the answer. Well, you won't hear this reported on the ABC or on Q&A, but you will hear it on Outsiders. I'm sure there are multiple explanations that the sociologists and health experts and others must explore. But for whatever reason, for most age brackets, the official data shows Indigenous deaths in custody are lower than Indigenous deaths out in general society. Or to put it another way, on average, Indigenous Australians are less likely to die in prison, not more likely. And it is critical we set this record straight, because at the moment the left and the ABC are terrorising our kids, not only about climate change, doom and gloom, not only about their 101 different potential genders and white supremacy and slavery and racism, but they are also terrorising all our kids, but black kids in particular, to hate the police. This is insidious and it is wrong. Indigenous kids need to be encouraged to take full advantage of every opportunity, as many already do, to get a better education in order to have a prosperous, brighter future as equal and valued members of our democracy. But if people in positions of authority, award-winning playwrights on the ABC, rich TV and radio presenters, millionaire sports people and other potential role models go out of their way to brainwash Indigenous kids to hate and fear every white person, to dread every authority figure, to loathe our institutions, that the system is stacked against them, and to believe that the police want to murder them, no wonder they're driven to despair.